going to start with this picture that I saw someone post on Facebook today. It shows a pig here. It says, if you were alone on a deserted island with a pig, would you eat the pig or starve to death? Now, anyone who's ever tried to argue for veganism or vegetarianism has heard this argument thrown at them in one way or another. Well, what have you have to kill an animal to survive? And the answer is in this quote by Andrew Kirstner. If you were not alone, living on a planet with 7 billion people, had access to unlimited fresh fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, and other healthy foods, and knew animals suffer and die horrible deaths so you can eat them when you don't need to eat them to survive, would you continue to eat them? The difference between our questions is that your scenario will never happen, and mine is the choice you face right now. Which do you believe is worth answering? So when people put up this desert island argument against veganism, they are not arguing within the context of reality as it is. In fact, for someone to propose this argument against veganism, on some level, they have to believe that within the context of the reality that we're actually living in, people should be vegan. Because the only way they can argue against veganism is to abstract away the modern world totally, put someone on a desert island, and then say, well, within this context, well, then what? Because all arguments have to take place within specific context. So something may be true in one context, but it's not true in another context. And another area where we will see these desert island scenarios come up is people who argue for capitalism. If you say, I'm not for capitalism, I want to develop an alternative economic system, then next thing you know, you're getting these desert island scenarios where someone says, what if I make this and that person makes this and we decide to voluntarily trade it, blah, 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 blah. And they're off arguing based upon conditions on a desert island that has very little or really nothing to do with the modern world. They have abstracted away technology, they have abstracted away mechanization, they have abstracted away technological unemployment, they have abstracted away how much labor is really needed in the context of those technologies. They have abstracted away limited resources and how those have to be conserved. Everything has been abstracted away. So likewise, when people are arguing against vegetarianism using the desert island scenario, they just abstract away all the things that someone would use to argue for being a vegan. So if you really want to argue for something, you have to argue for it within the context that whatever's going to exist. So if you want to argue for eating animals, you have to argue that we should eat animals within the context of the world people actually live in. Likewise, if you want to argue for capitalism, you should argue for capitalism within the context of the 21st century, which is the resources available in the 21st century, and the technology that we have available. And I'm bringing this up because I think it's a good example for what I would call abstracting, away objections, because people like Stefan Molyneux, for example, John Stossel, those are two people I'm talking about in recent videos, they will argue specifically for capitalism by abstracting away all the possible objections. And I think that this desert island argument against veganism, is a perfect example of that. It's just it's using that same abstracting away strategy, but just talking about something else. And anytime you hear someone putting forth these arguments where they're just abstracting away the problem, they should be called out for it. One thing I've noticed where if someone is arguing for capitalism and you point this out through their confirmation bias, they will not listen to you, and they will actually just ignore your argument, and then they will repeat this sort of desert island analogy. So you can't really reason with them, but at the very least you can be aware of what you're listening to. Okay, bye.
Again,
Okay, listen, man,
structural
you
violence.
gotta not just do this filibustering stuff. This kind of a yes no
Right.
thing. So you talk about market corrections or market discipline being a form of what did you call it? Structural
It
violence.
has the
And
propensity of
so
creating.
if my daughter sets up a lemonade stand and people don't, they drive past, maybe it's not that warm, maybe they just don't feel like lemonade. If nobody buys her lemonade, is she being subjected to structural violence? That's a yes/no
No,
question.
of
Please
course
don't
not.
filibuster me because I can't follow what you're saying.
No, no,